Hi everyone, my name is Rossella. I'm from Turin and I'm a student of the Master course European Legal Studies. In this video, I would like to introduce the transitional justice topic, explaining what it is and what its peculiarities are. So let's start the presentation with a very important question. What is transitional justice? Well, we can say that this approach appeared for the first time in the late 80s, especially in response to the political changes in Latin America and in Eastern Europe. Changes that are at the time popularly and traditionally defined as transitions to democracy. And for this reason, people began to call this new approach transitional justice. Our world, unfortunately, is full of injustices and violence. And transitional justice is a response to human rights violations, to abuses, that aims to promote peace and democracy, recognizing the dignity of the citizens as human beings. I think that transitional justice it can be considered a particular kind of approach that is able to help countries and society that are emerging from a period of conflict or that are facing a particular period of repression. Periods during which the human rights violations were so serious that probably the normal justice system would not provide adequate instruments in order to solve this severe situation. But what happens when conflicts end? Well, of course, governments, first of all, and societies have to respond to many questions. Like, for instance, who is responsible for these crimes? Or why did it happen? Well, transitional justice is the answer to all these questions because it is a tool through which victims can be heard. It is a response to massive crimes. It is a means able to identify the truth and to keep it alive in everyone's memory. But how transitional justice legal experts work in order to guarantee this assistance to the victims, to guarantee the truth? Well, in my opinion, it is important to introduce the so-called International Center for Transitional Justice, which is a non-profit international organization that works in countries that have suffered massive human rights abuses. These experts, with lawyers, of course, work with victims and with international or national associations, institutions, and organizations to help prevent those atrocities from happening again. Of course, it is necessary to underline the fact that the transitional justice framework and the interventions of these experts and lawyers consist of a full range of both judicial and non-judicial measures that want to emphasize this global approach, aiming to ensure, for instance, the right truth or the access to justice or institutional reforms, remedies for the victims or the respect of the rule of law. Therefore, following this kind of structure, we can say that transitional justice programs should include, first of all, the access to justice, because the identification of justice is necessary in order to guarantee financial, legal, and technical assistance to the victims of abuses. A central focus of this approach is guaranteeing the access to justice for all people who suffered violations of their human rights. Then we have the remedies for the victims that are very, very important measures taken by the state that are able to, we can say, compensate the harms suffered by the victims and repair their lives. What is relevant here is to guarantee financial assistance, justice, first of all, and the recognition of their suffering and their dignity as human beings. The governments should promise to the society that another period of conflicts will not happen again. As far as the prosecution's initiatives are concerned, we all agree that crimes like genocide or war crimes or crimes against humanity cannot be forgiven because they have in common the mass violations of human rights. And for this reason, the state or any other national institutions must punish the perpetrators of this crime, but at the same time must protect the victims from injustices. Of course, national courts or international courts are those elements, those legal instruments through which prosecutions of mass violations can take place. And we have the right to truth. Usually it's pretty difficult to understand immediately what happened in a country after a period of conflict. For this reason, the intention of seeking and preserving the truth about what happened, it is a debt to the society. And the right to truth of the victims can be guaranteed by truth commissions or national human rights commissions or any other institutional organizations established by the government, or maybe not, like for instance NGOs projects or associations of victims. Of course, there are also other possible solutions through which it is possible to achieve this goal, so to seek the truth. For instance, to incorporate historical truth into the educational system, so as not to forget what happened and keep the memory alive. Also to create debates within the communities in order to protect and promote human rights. Then finally, we have to consider institutional reforms, because maybe some causes of a conflict period are related to the state structures, which have necessarily modified. For example, a review of the penal code could be a good starting point. This because one of the pillars of a successful democratic state is a functioning legal system that must be fair, and people must perceive to be fair. So we can say that in this way, the state is able to support the needs of the victims even after a period of transformations, consolidating peace and security among the societies. I think that maybe these are the characteristics that differentiate transitional justice from other types and forms of justice, considering that it starts directly from the needs and suffering of the victims in order to protect them. But we have to consider another relevant aspect. Usually there are a lot of difficulties after a period of conflict, and these problems are often too complex to be solved by only one action. Let's think about it for a second. A damaged society, from both a social perspective, considering the suffering of children and women and families, and from both the institutional point of view, so the political changes or institutional reforms needs more than just judicial measures, which could not be sufficient. For this reason, after a long time, experts realized that in order to be effective, transitional justice should include several approaches that can complement one another. Of course, it's pretty clear that it is not possible to identify a single transitional justice model that can be applied in every situation. And this also because the characteristics and numbers of violations and the context of the society itself are completely different in every circumstance. So of course we have transitional justice models, but these approaches have to be applied in every circumstance, considering the characteristics and numbers of the violations and the characteristics of the society itself. So we have, for instance, the so-called punitive approach, that is a model which aims to be focused on the punitive action toward the perpetrators of the crimes without a possible future reconciliation. Or we have also the so-called truth and reconciliation model, or the forgiveness and oblivion mixed model, that we can say it is one of the most criticized approach of transitional justice because it aims to a maximum impunity. If, of course, in cases of conflict in which there are not losers or winners, this approach can be applied because there is not the necessity to identify the aggressors of the crimes. But on the other hand, in case of conflicts with authors of crime, of course, this approach cannot be applied. And then we have also the so-called mixed model, which is an approach that tries to mix the characteristics of the other models. In conclusion, we can say that, of course, there is no a single way for dealing with a past marked by human rights violations and suffering and injustices. But what I understood is that all transitional justice approaches are based on a fundamental belief in human rights. So guys, that's all for today. Personally, this is the third time I approach with this kind of learning mode, and I'm very happy about it because I think it is a way to demonstrate our knowledge through our creativity and also through our critical thinking. So thank you so much for your attention. See you soon.